Hey there, thanks for watching. This is Social Media for Wedding Pros. I just did this live webinar and I did record it, but we had a lot of people that asked questions and their videos were on, and I hadn't asked their permission to show their faces. So I decided to go ahead and re record the webinar for those of you that missed it. So we're going to go ahead and jump in. And a little bit about me, in case you don't know me. My name is Gina Ludwig, and I started my first wedding business nearly 30 years ago. I had no money, no experience, but I became obsessed with business and determined to learn absolutely everything I could. And I was able to build a high six-figure business, serving over 600 weddings a year. And I've spent the last 20 years helping wedding businesses grow, refine, and scale. I started out doing business consulting about 20 years ago, and now I've kind of switched gears. And through AGA Business Solutions, I now support their business through social media, custom website design, and virtual assistant services. So if that's something you're in need of, I would love to talk with you. I just published a book. I was on the #1 new release. I was so excited. And that's available now on Amazon if you're interested, Ever After Marketing. I've got another webinar coming up in May, SEO focused blogging for wedding pros. So if that's something of interest to you, I'm doing webinars all the time. So definitely check out my site under events, see what upcoming webinars we have. So for those of you who are hoping that I'm going to give you the latest tips, trends, and hacks, you're going to be disappointed. So you may want to hop off now. A lot of social media is about mindset and knowing what to focus on and what to let go. So for those people looking for a more realistic way to look at and approach social media that is very effective but not flashy or trendy, then you are in the right place. I'm going to be talking a lot about mindset, but I also will be giving actionable steps. And don't put your questions in the chat because this isn't live, but you can email me. Okay, so if you take one thing away from this webinar, this video, it's that social media is the one area where the metrics will mislead you. You cannot rely on likes, comments, and follows to tell you if it's working. You will not get the validation you're looking for. That doesn't mean it's not working. You have to trust yourself and the process. So let me just reiterate, you will not get the validation you're looking for. That doesn't mean it isn't working. So what I mean by that is the validation of those likes and those follows and those comments, that's not always going to happen. There are a lot of ways that people find you on social media. Meta showing your post to people is just one. People come to your feed directly from your website, directories, or specifically look you up. People search social media. So this is via profile, keywords, hashtags. People find you from other accounts. This is big in the wedding industry. Tags, mentions, collaborations, location tagging. They're finding you there. They're finding you through saves and shares and also through Google search. So now, just like a lot of the other social media platforms, you can now be found on Google via Instagram. So there are a lot more eyes on your social media than you realize. Couples may not be following, commenting, or liking, but they are watching and judging, and they're deciding whether to reach out and or book you. So stop focusing on the algorithm and those vanity metrics and focus on those people. You'll not get the validation you're looking for. That doesn't mean it's not working. I just had to reiterate that one more time because it's that important. Sorry, I'm just fixing my microphone. Okay. Okay, social media is not the problem and social media is not the answer. I want to put this in there because that is how we've been brainwashed to think, right? So social media is not why you're not booking clients. Social media is not why you're not getting new clients. Social media is not the answer for getting new clients. It's just not. We've been brainwashed to think that social media is the end all be all, and it's not. The crazy social media cycle. So most people ignore or neglect their social media and or obsess over their social media, and typically it's a constant back and forth. So they ignore or neglect it, and then they're like, oh my god, I haven't posted in so long, I need to post, and they start obsessing over it. Social media is important to the overall success of your business, but like I said, it's not the end all be all. It's not about doing more, it's really about finding the right balance, and this is what we're going to focus on. So I want to look at really quick how social media impacts booking. So this is how it can impact it negatively, right? So if you're inconsistent, if you post sometimes, then you ghost for months and don't show up on your social media, that can look really bad. And that's going to not attract clients. That can negatively affect booking. If you post poor quality, which I'm going to talk about specifically what that means, poor quality versus high quality. If your social media is confusing, and what I mean by confusing is it doesn't paint a clear picture of who you are and what you're all about. So then we have neutral. So a lot of people are in kind of this neutral. They're fairly consistent. It's okay quality. They're not really paying that much attention to it though. But it does speak to their ideal client. That's that confusing part. That is an absolute must for it to even be neutral. If you start confusing your clients, they don't know who you are, they don't know what you're all about, they don't know your style, that's always going to negatively affect your booking. And on the positive, obviously, that's where we want to focus. It's consistent, high quality, speaks to your ideal client, and elicits a reaction. So I'll go into all of those more in a few minutes. But first of all, let's look at what it may look like. So, at the lower end of the positive, which again, all I want is for you to be in that green, you need to be in that positive. That's consistent posting, quality content, optimized tags and collabs, 3 to 4 times a week. I'll kind of get into that a little bit more. And yes, you can have an effective social media strategy with just single image posts, not doing reels and carousels. And so this is what I want you to aim for. And we'll kind of talk about going up into the 7, 8, 9, and 10. But this is really the goal. This is going to do way more for you than you actually think. Just that posting that consistently posting that quality content. So going up a notch might look like adding a few reels in, maybe a reel a week, a carousel a week, occasional stories, some nurturing. And every single one after this is just more and better content, more reels, more stories, more nurturing, more educational content, putting your face on camera. It gets just to be a crazy amount that's like not worth the effort. So I'm going to go into that in a minute. But again, this is kind of what it looks like. And it does make sense for some brands, most wedding brands. It doesn't make sense to focus on that 9 or 10. And unfortunately, that's what a lot of that generic friend social media advice is focused on. You don't need to be worried about that. So, my question that I want to ask you, and actually I want you to ask yourself, is it worth it? Right? So, every single level. So, again, if you focus just on that 6, every level up requires more time, effort, and energy or money. So, more and better content to plan and create, more platforms to keep up with, more pressure to show your face and be on camera, more trends, changes, and best practices to keep up with. It's exhausting, it's stressful, and most importantly, and this is the thing I want you to really get, the payoff doesn't come close to matching the effort. It takes a lot of time to create that content that gets consumed in half a second, right? There's 95 million pieces of content posted, 95 or more. That's the average, 95 million pieces of content posted every day on Instagram. So you're taking all this time and effort to create something that you're really not getting the payoff for. So for most wedding pros, good enough is good enough. Your time and energy are better spent elsewhere. So for those of you wondering, because I know there are, when does it make sense to do more? Because you have been conditioned, you have been brainwashed to be like, oh, wait, she's not going to tell us about trending audio and reels and what we can do more of. No, no, I don't want you to do more. I want you to do things the right way. And that doesn't have to be a lot. So, but for those of you that are wondering, because I know there are some of you that are wondering that. And you know what? Sometimes it does make sense. So when does it make sense to do more, to push for the 7, 8, 9, 10 level? If you already have a large and or highly engaged following, when I say large, probably 10,000 or more, then it might make sense to do more. You're on Meta's radar, you're getting shown to more people, you have the opportunity to potentially show up more. You might want to put in a little bit more effort. You might get the payoff for that. You actually enjoy social media. Where are you? I want to meet you. Not very many people I know enjoy it. Those of you that do are probably not watching this video. You have a team or VA handling it for you, or you have the budget and you're okay without a clear return, right? So you've gotten your business to a certain point where you know what, you've got the budget. You can pay $1,000 a month for someone to do your socials. Maybe you have a budget and you also have a large following, then it might make sense. But for most wedding pros, that's not the case. But with the caveat, none of this matters without a strong foundation. So just because someone finds you on social media doesn't mean they will reach out, right? So if you don't have a strong website, if you don't have a strong brand identity, if you don't have strong marketing message, it doesn't really matter. It doesn't matter how many eyes are on your socials. You don't have those pieces of the puzzle that it takes to keep those consistent bookings. And you're still at the mercy, you're still at the mercy of Meta. So you could do everything quote unquote right and still not see the results you're hoping for because at the end of the day, Meta's in charge, not you. So we're going to talk about the 3 simple steps to turn your social media into an asset. So we're going to really talk about taking you into that 6, right? And trying to shift your mindset so that you know that that 6 is good enough. It's really going to help affect your bookings in a positive way. All you need to do, post quality content that is optimized on a consistent basis. That's it. Don't overcomplicate it. I know this goes against everything you've been told. And I know me even giving this advice is butting up against that wall of, yeah, but I heard this and I've heard that. It's brainwashing. I'm telling you. Social media is not the end all be all. Okay. So let's jump in and let's start talking about some of the practical tips. Like I said, post quality content that is optimized consistently, right? The quality content. So this is how I want you to think about it. When couples browse your socials, they are creating a story about their wedding in their head. How can you add to and help illustrate that story? That's your job. That's what social media's job is all about, right? So you want to show only your best work that is consistent with your brand identity and resonates with your ideal client. I always say this, you're only as good as your worst piece of content. That doesn't mean your work is bad. When I say worst piece of content, a bad piece of content, a low quality piece of content isn't showing your best work. It's not something you're super proud of. It's not consistent with your brand identity and it doesn't resonate with your ideal client. That's what a bad, quote unquote, bad piece of content is. It only takes one post to create doubt. And I don't tell you this to stress you out. But I tell you this so that you can begin to focus on quality over quantity. This is not about doing more, it's about doing it right. And I also like to say all the time, if you use them, you lose them. So again, this goes back to being very consistent. If you're known for a certain style, showcase that style. Really, your social media and your Instagram in general with your feed should really show a cohesive, consistent brand story. Okay, so let's talk about content that converts. Content that converts is inspirational. So that is, I want to do that. Maybe they can help me do that. Aspirational. I want to be that. Maybe they can help me be that. And I'm going to show you some examples. This in a minute. Emotional. I feel that. Maybe they can help me feel that. Again, that's kind of going back to creating that story in their head of their wedding day. They're imagining their first kiss. They're imagining their first dance. All of those things. Relatable. I can relate to that. Maybe I will relate to them and they will understand me. And then educational. I didn't know that. What else don't I know that they can teach or show me? Now, I do want to say that educational is more kind of in that 8, 9, 10. This is the kind of content that does take time to create. So if you don't have a big following, if you don't have a high engagement, I would rather have you spend that time blogging or doing some other type of marketing than spending it on social media. But I'm going to still go into what that looks like. Okay, this type of content converts because it creates trust. And above everything else, trust is the most important element required to book weddings. So let's go ahead and look at some of that content. This is that aspirational. So this is kind of those lifestyle photos of like, oh my God, I want to be that. That's amazing. I aspire to be that. So that really connects. Inspirational. So that is more like, oh, I love that. Oh my God, that's so beautiful. I want to do that. I want to do that for my wedding. I haven't seen that before. I love that. Relatable. So this is like the type of content that people are looking at and they recognize themselves in. You can see kind of how different these are. The first one, kind of that hippie boho style, where if that's your style, then that's going to resonate with your ideal client. The second one is kind of more edgy, or of course, like an LGBT, kind of showing that you're inclusive. That's something that's really important to your brand. So, all those things are things that are going to connect people to your brand and they're going to relate. That's that relatable content. And then emotional, of course, just any photos that you're just like, oh, that just hits a little part of me inside. So people are very emotional creatures. People make decisions using emotion and then validate with reason. So always want to try to show those emotional images and videos and stuff that are going to really help people connect with your brand and your content. And then we do have educational. So these are just kind of some of a few posts that we've done for some of our social media clients. And these are the kind of things, like I said, that's like, oh, I didn't know that. Well, if they know that, what else don't, what else do they know that I don't know that I need to find out from them? So this is the kind of content that does instill trust. But again, this is not required. You can definitely have a very successful social media presence without doing this kind of educational content. If you do want to take it up a notch, again, like I said, if you have the budget, if you've got a team member that can do it for you, if you've got a large following, then you might want to consider this, but it's absolutely not. So, what does someone feel when they look at your content? Wow, I love that. That's beautiful. That's amazing. I want to do that. I want to be or have that. Yes, I can relate. That's so me, my style, or my personality. They get me. That's the most important thing, again, is that connection, that relatability. They get me. This might be my perfect planner. This might be my perfect makeup artist. Focus on the reaction, not the content itself. So don't necessarily get too hung up on the minutia of everything. Just really focus on when you look at that piece of content, is it emotional? Is it aspirational? Is it inspirational? Is it related? Okay, so let's talk about consistency. So 3 to 4 posts a week. So I say this is a general guideline. And again, this is one of the problems with blanket social media advice that you hear and how often you should post. The wedding industry doesn't always fit into all of that advice, right? And so there are pros and cons to sometimes posting more. Probably the only pro is that you will get more visibility. However, it doesn't guarantee that. So if you're trying to build, if visibility is your focus, then posting more can be okay, but not really necessary. The con of posting more is that you can get content fatigue. So in the wedding industry, it's such a collaborative industry. I would guess that if you looked at your followers right now, majority of them are other wedding pros, and that's a good thing. You want those people's eyes on you all the time. So if you're posting every single day, you could create that content fatigue. So 3 to 4 posts a week really put you in that sweet spot of keeping top of mind without being annoying or obnoxious. And that level of posting is really going to support engagement. What you know. That's my recommendation. But here's the caveat: post less than this if you don't have the content to support this many posts a week, right? So this goes back to that quality over quantity. And less if you can't consistently commit to this many. So if you just can't consistently commit to 3 to 4 times a week, but you can to twice a week, I'd rather you post twice a week consistently for 6 months than try to post 4 a week and then run out of content or get busy or you don't commit to it and then weeks or months go by that you don't post. That's the worst thing. So the best thing you can do to stay consistent is, first of all, have a system for collecting and organizing content. So most people, this is going to be maybe a Google Drive. It doesn't really matter what's, whatever system you figure works for you. I also actually have another social media platform called simplifyyoursocials.com that has a content organizational system. So if you want to check that out, but it doesn't matter what you use, it's all about having a system and making it part of your SOPs, part of that system. So part of that system is even in the very beginning, making sure that you get those photos, right? So a lot of people, like after the wedding, they're scrambling, calling the couple or the bride or the photographer. As soon as you book a wedding, my advice is that you reach out to that photographer just to touch base with them. Hey, we just booked Sue Smith in November. We're super excited to work with you. Start following them on social media. I would do that, and we did do this at Here Comes the Bride, my wedding business. Any new client that booked, we would find out their key players, which is always the planner, the venue, the photographer, reach out to them. If we worked with them before, hey, so excited to work with you again. If we hadn't worked with them before, then hey, so excited to work with you. That's as soon as the bride booked. Since we did hair and makeup services, we also did a trial run for the bride. So as soon as we did that, we would again reach out to the venue, the photographer, and the planner. Hey, we just did Sue Smith's trial. Here's our timing. Does that work with what you've got? And I can't tell you how much just that went as far as nurturing relationships and connections and getting referrals, because we were making someone else's job easy. They're like, oh my God, we never get a call from the hair and makeup artist to confirm timing. We can't believe you did that. That's amazing. So it really made us stand out. And again, just nurtured that relationship. So then, of course, you're already kind of building that relationship with the photographer. So after the wedding, when you reach out and you're like, hey, can I get those photos? Much more likely they're going to give them to you pretty quickly because you've already established that relationship. So that system for collecting, and then, of course, organizing that content in a Google Drive, getting those IG handles before the wedding's over, or before the wedding starts, actually, or before the wedding day, so that you can have those IG handles of all those vendors. And typically, the planner, if the couple has a wedding planner, that's something a lot of time the wedding planner does. So you can always ask them that. Anyway, so have a system for collecting and organizing content, and then batching and scheduling. So trying to post social media on the fly is definitely going to cause a lot of frustration and overwhelm because we forget and we get busy. The best thing you can do is batch and schedule using a scheduling app. So our go-to preferred scheduling app is metricool.com. That doesn't mean you have to use Metricool, but I absolutely love it. They even have a free version if you don't want to pay for another platform. So batching and scheduling, that's going to be your best friend. That's the best thing you can do to stay consistent. Don't plan on winging it. That's definitely not how you stay. Okay, so let's talk about optimization. So optimization basically helps your content get shown by Meta. So relevance is key when it comes to optimization. So Meta is looking at everything: profile, your content, your captions, your hashtags, your keywords, your alt text, your location tags, your tagging, mentioning, and collaborating. It's looking at all of that. And now with AI technology, it's even smarter than ever. So it's looking at all of that and it's like, who might be interested in this? And that's who it's going to show it to, right? So I'm not going to, again, give you the tips and the tricks and, oh, do this many hashtags and this many keywords. It's really the relevance that's the most important. So let's just use for example, hashtags, right? I'm not going to give you a magic number. Use 6 hashtags. If I had to give you a number, I'd say somewhere between 3 and 10. But your hashtags are really going to depend on your content. So if there are 10 hashtags that are super relevant to that image or that video, then use those. If there's only 3 that you can find, then use those. Hashtags, definitely want to have a combo of specific hashtags that are what that content is about, and then a few location hashtags as well. So bridal hair and makeup, South Florida. or wedding planner Miami, whatever. So I'm not going to go into this in too much detail, but again, this is just kind of optimizing, is making sure that everything makes sense together, right? And then your location tags, always, always, always tag the venue when you can. Don't tag yourself. Tag the venue because it's more likely that couples are going to be looking at that location tag and different things that were tagged at that location. If the location doesn't have a tag that you can use, then use the general area. Last case scenario, worst case, then you can use your own tag. Try to use the venue or a general location. Tagging, mentioning, and collaborating. This is absolutely your secret weapon when it comes to social media for wedding pros. Always be tagging, mentioning, and inviting collaborators with your post whenever ever possible. Ideally, always. So, Meta is taking all of this information for every post to determine who to show this piece of content. The algorithm spits it out to a small number of people, and if they respond, then it widens the reach. So, yes, the system is rigged. Meta shows your content to a small number of people. If there's no response or interest, it stops showing it. But how are you ever supposed to get interest if Meta doesn't show it? Exactly, you can't, right? So it really is this slow churning. I mean, it takes a lot of time to see any kind of traction with social media, which is exactly why you need to shift your mindset and exactly why this webinar is so focused on mindset over the tips and tricks and hacks, right? So Meta doesn't care about your business and you shouldn't care about Meta. Focus on those people coming to your socials to vet you, all those eyes, invisible eyes on your feed, and those other wedding vendors who follow and refer you. That's the gold right there, especially those wedding vendors. Um, that is who matter and who you should be posting for. You will not get the validation you're looking for. I just felt like this was another time to reiterate that. That doesn't mean it isn't working. Focus on the people that matter, not those vanity metrics. Okay, so now we're going to put it all into action. Those 3 simple steps. So this is a system for people who hate social media but want to do it themselves. So create a system for collecting and organizing content and IG handles, like I talked about. Commit to finding a scheduling app you will use. I know there's a learning curve. I know it's a pain in the ass. I know you don't want to have to use another platform, but if you are stressing out about social media, this is the best thing you can find a scheduling app that you will use. So once a month, you're going to batch and schedule 3 images a week of your best work, just single images of your best work. You're going to look at those images. You're going to say, are they inspirational, aspirational, relatable, or emotional? Does this show my best work? Is this in line with my ideal client? If yes, that's what you're going to post. Of course, you can use ChatGPT to help you with captions and hashtags. Tag, mention, and collaborate and use those venue location tags. And then stop stressing and focus on other things. Like that's all it really takes to have social media that really supports booking and supports your business, right? So you can add in reel stories and carousels, but only if it's quick, easy, fun, or you can delegate, whether that's delegating to someone on your team or hiring someone to do it. This type of content is very time consuming, like I showed you before in my little chart, and it's not worth the potential payoff for most brands. This is the most important part I want you to hear. As the business owner, your time is much better spent on other areas of business. So that's why I say you are the boss, you're the leader, you're building this business or this empire, whatever your goals are, right? Your time is better spent on other things. You should not be creating reels and stories and carousels. If it's fun, if it's quick and it's easy, go for it. Or like I said, the more logical thing is like if you want to move up from that 6 to that 7, 8, or 9 or 10, then that's when you want to delegate or hire someone to do it for you, not spend your time. So the goal of this webinar is not to stress you out and make you feel more pressure. It is to shift your focus to what really matters, not likes, not follows, not posting more, not trying to do it all. not comparing yourself to everyone else, and especially not equating your value to vanity metrics. Posting with intention for the people who matter. That is the goal. So, your job, shift your mindset, stop stressing about trying to do it all, be honest with yourself. Social media is an important element to booking weddings. I've given you a very simple plan to follow. It was very simple. It's just those 3 images a week, optimized. So, post quality content consistently. That's optimized. That's it. That's your simple plan. But I always like to say you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it post. So if you can't commit, it might be time to delegate. And this is exactly what we help with. Here comes the sales pitch. Um, but no, we offer amazing custom social media services created specifically for wedding pros, designed to build credibility and trust in your brand, backed by years of marketing strategy and experience, built for how couples research and vet wedding pros, simple, organized, and stress free. So if you want to book a business clarity call, stop overthinking, stop obsessing, and focus on what actually matters. So if you would like to learn more, I would love for you to book a business clarity call, see how we might be able to help your business. So I hope this was helpful, and thank you so much for joining me. Bye.